going? My name's Terence and welcome back to Rusted Iron Ranch. Today's video, we're in the shed and we're going to have a look at some tools. The tools we're going to have a look at today are what I would probably consider socket accessories. Everyone's probably got some sort of description of the things I'm going to show you, but I just thought I'd show you these ones because I use them a hell of a lot, and sometimes they can be the difference in between getting a job done or not. So what I'll do, I'll set you up and we'll just go through the tools one by one. I'll just give you a bit of rundown of each of them and how I use them. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here's our tools here on the bench. We'll start from the left and then we'll move across to the right, and you might be surprised, but the one on the right is probably one of my most used tools when I'm pulling something apart or putting something back together. Okay, so let's start with the extensions that we've got over here. So these are 1/2 inch extensions. I've got 3 different sizes. I think maybe a 2, 3, and this is probably a 6 or an 8 inch extension. So these aren't just any extension, they're actually wobble extensions, and I think I've actually shown these in a video previously. I think I was taking the fuel tank on and off the 135, and sometimes you can't get directly down onto a bolt, you just need to be that little bit off, and these ends here allow you to achieve just that. So we'll chuck a socket on. Okay, so all the way down they work as a normal socket extension. But if you lift up the socket slightly, it allows you to get that little bit of degree of angle in all 4 directions. That may or may not be the difference in being able to get on top of that bolt and not trying to strip the or round the edges of the bolt head or the nut off. So, like I said, these have helped me a lot. Mainly this long one. I have used the other smaller ones as well quite a bit. I haven't really got into the instance where I've had to put too many together, but that is also an option. If you had to kind of go around corners slightly, you could always do that if you wanted to. If I can get this one to sit in there. So, I don't know if you can tell there, but I can get quite a lot of flex out of these 3, and obviously you can put them in different orders, depending on the corner that you need to go around. But these are a very handy accessory to have. That much so that I actually just use these as my normal socket extensions now. So mainly this one, like I said, but I have used the shorter ones as well before on jobs. So that's the first one. Get yourself some, we'll call them wobble extensions or something like that. These ones are Ampro brand. I think I got them at an auto parts store that were changing brand name. So the new company that bought the shop didn't stock this, so they were selling them all really cheap. So I think I got a set of 3 for something like $10, so that was a real steal. Okay, moving on. The next thing we'll talk about is T-handles. So these T's I actually got out of the States, I think, a few years ago. I was after particularly a 1/2 inch one. I could find 1/4 inch and 3/8 everywhere you looked, but I really wanted a 1/2 inch T-bar. They could have been a little bit longer, and I think this company probably did make them longer, but they've been really handy, and you can tell by how dirty they are how much I've actually used them. So very handy piece of kit. These ones are Fellow brand, which are a German company. I'm pretty sure they make some pretty good screwdrivers as well. I can't remember what these set me back. I believe it was something like $70, but it was all 3, so I think that's pretty good. And especially for motorbike stuff, anything that you don't really want to accidentally over torque. I use the 3/8 one a lot on motorbike bolts and nuts. Just nip it up, and you can get enough torque out of just these T-handles. Probably more than enough for the size bolts that you're working with, your M6, M8 type thing. Although I do like using it on 1/2 inch as well. Sometimes you're trying to spin on a bolt or a nut way down and you don't need that full ratchet hanging out the side, and you just want to be able to slowly spin the bolt into the hole. So they are really handy for that. Okay, next thing is this 1/2 inch ratchet. Now, this brand, I think, is like Werkzeug or something like that. I think it's a German brand. I got this off eBay quite a few years ago. I think I paid something like $50. I'm going to buy another one because it's awesome. It has a really fine tooth gear head. I don't know what it'll be, maybe 72, something like that. I'm not going to count it. And it's a swivel head as well. Now that can be really handy for a few things. Also, it's got the detent as well to hold your socket on. So we've got a bolt here. It can be really handy for doing up stuff really quick like that. You can hold onto this collar and that spins freely. The other thing it does really well is extends. So particularly when you're undoing something and you can't get, let's tighten this bolt way up. So particularly when you'll get onto a bolt and you're trying to undo it and you can't quite crack it. Obviously I could crack this one right now. Give yourself a little bit more leverage. I think there's 4 little detents that you can put it into. So you might be stuck for space so you don't have to open up all the way. Quite often you can open up all the way and just gives that little bit of leverage to crack the bolt open. Bring it back down, quickly undo it, fly it around. Awesome. This has been really handy. I've even done wheel nuts and everything with this thing. I've used it a hell of a lot. The handle's still in really good nick. A little bit beat up. I've probably hit it with a few soft hammers. Really, I cannot complain about this thing. I've had this for probably 5 years or so now, and to be honest, apart from my Baco half-inch set, this is my most used ratchet. So if you can find these on eBay or something like that, yeah, I highly recommend grabbing one. Like I said, I'm going to grab another one just because this thing has been so good. And I believe it was something like $50. Who knows what they are now. Who knows if you even get them anymore. But well worth it. Okay, so that's the flex head extending ratchet. Next on the socket accessories is the Milwaukee half-inch ratchet, electric ratchet. So this is the M12. I've previously had all the M18 gear, and I really wanted one of these, so I bought into the M12 range as well. This is the fuel brushless one. Apparently the brushed versions maybe aren't as good a quality, so I went with the brushless straight off the mark. It's been really good. This was actually the difference in between me getting a job done once on my Land Rover. I was trying to get seats out of the back of the 7-seater in the back, and they were Torx head pieces, and I had my drawer system in, and I couldn't get to these little Torx head bolts. I could have taken my whole drawer system out, but that was going to add on another 45 or so minutes trying to get that thing out. So I ended up being able to get this in to the hole. There was no room to even ratchet it, but I could get it into the hole and undo the Torx bolts. So this really saved me. If I did not have this, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Other times you've been underneath the car trying to fit side steps, something like that, and you just need to be able to hold whatever you're trying to bolt on up, and you don't really have that ability to start ratcheting with your other hand. This comes in real handy then. Just hold it in position, make sure that socket's on the bolt, and away you go. No detent button or anything like that, but it does have a really good detent ball that holds your sockets on pretty solid. So I highly recommend this if you're going to be doing any finicky work. I got the half-inch one. I think they make a 3/8 and a 1/4 as well. Probably in both the brushed and the brushless. I do think they've just now made a, we'll call it a rattle gun, but in this format, more of a ratchet. So this won't, this isn't a rattle gun, so I should make that point. This isn't a rattle gun. This is literally just an automated ratchet that you would usually use on sockets. So all it's doing is tightening up. So it will tighten up to a point, and it does have some sort of sensor, like a pressure switch in there, that it'll actually shut off and not burn out the motor if it gets too tight. There, so I'm still holding the button, like the trigger, and it actually won't tighten any more than that. One of the other good things about this ratchet is that not only is it a motorized ratchet, we'll call it, but it's still a ratchet at heart. So if the battery goes flat, or if it's just too tight or something like that, you can still crack a nut, and you probably should do it this way, crack the nut with the ratchet, then undo off. Vice versa, if you're putting a nut on, sneak up on it and then tighten it with the ratchet part. And sometimes that might be all you need. If you're not talking something to spec, that might be all you need. Okay, so that's the Milwaukee M12 half-inch power ratchet, we'll call it. Very, very handy. Okay, lastly in my socket accessories is this guy here. I said before that it's probably one of my most used tools, and it is. That much so that I bought another 3/8 Baco socket set just so I could get another one. So what we have is just a 1/4 inch spinner, but I think the beauty of it is it's also got a 1/4 inch drive in the top. Quite often you just have little spinners and some kits that you can kind of do your bolts or nuts up with first, and then you take it off and put your ratchet on. So the beauty of this is that it's actually got the 1/4 inch drive in the end of it, and quite often this is the setup that I run with. I do a lot of automotive work with this exact setup right here. You can undo pretty much anything in an engine bay that doesn't require a 1/2 inch. You can do it with this thing. It's also really handy on hose clamps as well. You can put your little 7 or 6 mil 1/4 inch socket on the end. I've even had a Phillips or a flathead screwdriver bit on the end as well. Very, very handy. So I'll just show you how I use it here. So we've got a 10 mil on, and we've got a M6 in the vise here. So we've got it done up. You can spin it on with your fingers, actually just using the spinner, and then when you get it really nipped up, sneak up on it with the ratchet. Like I said, this is probably one of my most used things, particularly working on vehicles. Also motorbikes too. I do quite often end up with this, particularly in the strip down stage. If you're trying to take something apart, I'll use this. And then I'll probably end up using something like a spinner or something, putting everything back together, just because you don't want to over torque or strip anything out. And you can still do that, particularly on M6, M8 bolts with a 1/4 inch ratchet. It's still a lot of leverage. Okay, well there you have it. 5 tools that I consider in my top 5 socket accessories. We had the wobble extensions, the T-bars in 1/4, 3/8 and 1/2 inch, the ratchet, it's a fine ratchet, swivel head extension, very, very handy. The Milwaukee brushless M12 ratchet, electronic ratchet, and lastly, it's a Baco spinner particularly, but in that combination with the 1/4 inch ratchet on the end, is probably one of my most used tools. Okay, so there you have it, just a little video on 5 tools, in particular socket accessories that I find really valuable. The purpose of this video was just to kind of share with you the tools that I think are pretty important. I'm in no way sponsored by any of these brands, more so just to show you what I've bought over the years and what I've come to use a hell of a lot. Okay, well if you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe. Once again, my name's Terrence, this has been Rusted Iron Ranch, and thanks for watching.